I start with the introduction real quick. My name is Naman, and I'm with Transform Mobility. We are a business transformation company, and this is something which is very relevant to this environment right now. So we selected a topic which is very relevant, and we appreciate your involvement as well. Feel free to ask questions, raise your hand, and use the chat box. So with this, I'm gonna let Dennis introduce himself. Dennis.
Hi, my name is Dennis Kappa, and first of all, I hope everybody is doing safe and is doing well. I'm the managing director of Digital Process Solutions and Production Modeling Corporation. I have a dual career path. I have 40 years in engineering and project management, which includes 20 years in software solution development and business process automation. I just want to thank you, Naman, for inviting me to this webinar, and I look forward to speaking.
Dave.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Real quick, I've got also as Dennis 40 years experience in this business. I have kind of a unique path. I grew up in the skilled trades in the Detroit area, working through the job shops, working way up into program management. I've had many different positions over the years at some larger companies. I was project manager at Kamau. I was director of manufacturing at Tesla. I ran an auto plant at Chrysler for a little while. So I've been around the industry for a little while, ran program management at some of the large OEMs. So I bring 40 years experience in the automation industry to this discussion.
Very good. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, this is Ron Kisslinger. I as well have spent 23 years in the auto industry, and then after that I had moved into warehousing, distribution, e-commerce space, but the common thread through all of it has been automation. Working on automation from international joint ventures to I was an executive leading worldwide engineering at Amazon, as well as a global officer at Walmart leading e-commerce. So applying automation across different industries. Like Dave, I've also worked at Kamau, so I've been on the supply base side as well as the OEM side in the auto industry. And I also worked at Symbotic and developed a turnkey solution. It was a shuttle-based ASRS for distribution for e-commerce and for warehousing. So I've been on both the supplier side and the OEM side in both industries.
Very good. Hey, thank you, gentlemen, for the intro. I think this is a great experience right here, and I think that we'll benefit from your experiences in our session today. Just a quick info for participants: the mic is muted. So if you want to write something, please use the chat box. And this webinar is recorded. We will post it on the YouTube page called Transform Mobility. And also there's a handout. This presentation is part of this webinar, so you can retrieve this presentation as well. I'd like to start with this bold statement that business as usual is dead. And in this age of disruption, the only constant is change. And this is the most important thing, that what we are doing right now in this environment and how we are transforming ourselves, how we are moving forward, that is the real deal, okay? Because whatever happened before, or the business as usual, that is not going to come back, okay? So that's just keep in mind this thought. It's a key thought as we move forward. Okay, so I like to open up this discussion with some emergent thoughts, and I have a number of these thoughts that I captured here, and I like to hear from everyone, this panelist, on some of these thoughts. What are your views? I start with the first one, which is the phenomenon that is happening right now, this de-globalization and relocalization. This phenomenon of de-globalization and relocalization is one of the key phenomena. And there is a lot of implications of this, just this thought here, because we will be working in close proximity moving forward, as long until we got a vaccination or we have a solution to this problem. So there is a lot of thought about bringing processes and manufacturing operations in a very small, in our close proximity. So this is one of the things that will drive a lot of change in the market, in the business environment. And so this is, from my perspective, a key thought to think about, key thought to keep in mind. With this, I like to maybe ask Ron about his thought about what are the emerging thoughts, Ron, that you're seeing in the industry right now.
Well, obviously there's a focus and a renewed focus on, providing value to the customers, but really it's around the fact that before there was a lot of postponement of automated solutions. There's plenty of automated solutions that are available today, but it seems like leadership has wanted to throw labor at the problem. And I think the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic that we're in has really shined the spotlight on the fact that we have an aging workforce. And unfortunately, it was a double whammy because of the aging workforce was the most susceptible to this virus. And hence, those are the folks that couldn't come to work right at a time when they needed more labor in the labor pool. So that's what we're seeing in a lot of the supply chain. And that's why we have shortages. That's why you've seen a lot of produce facilities shutting down. You see beef processing shutting down, milk pasteurization shutting down. A lot of the folks in those roles have been there for many years, and they're an aging populace. And because they're most susceptible, this really has highlighted the need to automate some of these more laborious tasks.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Well, that virus too, if I can just add, the virus too, what that has taught everybody is that you have employees that have been in the buildings for 20 plus years, 30 years, never leaving their particular department. Now all of a sudden they had to go home, they had to work remotely, they had to log into VPNs. So a lot of these things that are coming forward, there's a new technology or new ways to do things. Although some of us have been doing it for many years working at home, there's non-experience with that aging workforce to train them into using the new business technology so that they can actually practice cybersecurity and a lot of other things that go forward. So business process automation as well as manufacturing is going to be key coming up.
Right, I think that's a good point.
If I may add, then moving down the list to reimagining automation. So what I'm finding in some of the consulting and some of the companies that I've been engaging is now there's this desire to automate processes based on lessons learned that we've learned through this pandemic. Coming out of this, a lot of CEOs and company leaders are saying, I want to automate this process that caused me an issue through this pandemic. So they want to break into new areas and automate, which adds a whole bunch of new challenges to automating something we've never automated. Something maybe in the past where we thought it wasn't financially viable to automate. But now when you realize it could shut your whole company down, you might say, I want to invest there where I never would have before, because you got to look past payback on investment. You have to look at how does this affect me in my organization in the long run. So we're starting to see, that's what we'll talk about further down in the slides, is reimagining automation and automating new areas.
Well, again, that's key to true. And one thing too, you got to remember with cloud technology, the employees, the younger generation coming up, they will be able to use their software and hardware to work through the cloud to actually maybe have some of those plants be lights out and working all the time. So there's a lot of good things coming in the path.
Yep, absolutely.
I agree. But I think one thing from my view is that there's a renewed focus on value. People are looking to improve value. People are looking to eliminate waste here. And people are looking to improve productivity, which has been stagnant for quite some time. And with the new technologies right now, I think presents a great opportunity to improve productivity, and reduce cost. Because cost reduction is a key focus right now for every single company. Because with this environment, what this crisis has created is a huge focus, a laser focus on cost reduction, and automation and value focus on value presents a great way to improve that value for us. But just really quickly, the transformation in automation. If you see, we used to work very manual, and then we start to have some automation. But now automation is touching every single space. Okay, and the areas where we sometimes are in distant past are that we were not thinking of automating now is being automated right now. But I come back to this key point here, which is the focus is value, improving value and reducing waste. Okay, and how we can improve the value proposition, how we can understand the value proposition that we are delivering, that what we have, and then how we are delivering that value proposition. That's become the biggest focus right now. And this is where automation can help. This is where not only like automation through robotics, but business process automation, decision making can also help. So with this, I'd like to ask, with your experience, Ron, how have you improved value and how have you driven transformation in the industries where you have worked?
Well, I can use this example from e-commerce. Most people are used to going online, you just click and your package shows up, and you don't think about how many people have actually had to be involved in that process and touch your product as it's moved through the supply chain. So not even counting the touches that are happening at the manufacturer and everything else to get them to the facility. Let's just focus on a fulfillment center for a moment. You have a trailer that shows up with goods, it has to get unloaded, then that product has to be received. Humans are touching that product, they're weighing it, they're measuring it, they're keying in color details, other things so that they can identify it and the SKU number. It's then palletized and then stored away in overstock. From overstock, it's then retrieved again and put into a pick module, where a human will go around and pick those items in a batch mode, meaning that my item, your item, and somebody else's item could all be in that tote. That tote then gets conveyed to another person that has to induct it now to a sortation device so that it can sort your items from my items and get them down different chutes to a person at the end of that chute that then turns around and puts them into a put wall or like a PO box with all of your items for your order. You may have ordered 3 items, and when all of your 3 items get there, they then have to get pushed through, where yet another human being has to now build the box, put the items in the box, put all the dunnage, the air pillows and whatnot in it, tape it shut, put a label on it. Now it goes to loading, and it actually has to be hand loaded onto the truck. Not to mention that it'll probably drive 5 miles down the road and get unloaded. But just focusing on the facility itself, there are 11 plus human touches in that process today in some of the best processes that exist. That's Amazon, Walmart, Target, Macy's, you can go down the whole list. That's a whole lot of humans involved. To Dave's point earlier, sometimes you have to look beyond saying, hey, is it a 2-year payback in a certain area? And now you have to start talking about business continuity. Can I continue to do business and can I continue to grow at the rate that e-commerce is growing and maintain this labor pool? The problem is, as we mentioned, we've got an aging labor pool. So now that aging labor pool, some of them are afraid to come to work, some of them can't come to work, they're high risk, so they need to stay home at the exact time that we need more people to pick. So it's really putting a strain on the throughput. And if you notice, even Amazon has waived its 2-day delivery of non-essential items. But now let's talk a little bit about future state. In the future state, the holy grail would be to get to lights out, meaning that the facility basically runs itself with limited supervision. However, there are pieces in that process that currently exist that we can use today. All of the technology is there. And then there's three basic points that aren't quite there yet. One is unloading, another is robotic picking, and the last is loading. Those, you still need to have some human touches. The reason being, the products that are coming in are so dissimilar and the packages going out so dissimilar that the solutions that exist in those spaces right now just aren't quite robust enough to be at a rate of a human. But like I said, to Dave's point, you might look at that and say, okay, well, I wouldn't have a 2-year payback because I can't keep up with a human today. But business continuity, it might make sense to put that in. It's not extremely expensive. It's just I haven't put it in today just because I couldn't get the 2-year payback. Robotic picking can be done. There just isn't a single company out on the market today that can do it all by themselves in their own vertical stack. You have to be able to be creative. We've done that. I've led a team that's done that. We can robotic pick, and we were faster than all but 2 individuals in the entire company. So it can be done. The point is that there just needs to be a little bit more focus in these areas. But it just shows you an example of how you can go from a very laborious task-oriented job today to a job where I'm not competing for the same labor pool, where Amazon offers 50 cents an hour more and they run to Amazon, and then Walmart offers 50 cents more and they run there. So there's a 200% annualized turnover in this industry. If I now teach those individuals how to run these processes, how to reset a robot, how to reset the crane, how to blow out the machine that's building the boxes and auto packing and add more glue and add more corrugate, they now have something that is, first of all, more appealing to them, something they might even brag to their family and friends about, that they run these really cool robots. Plus, I've provided them a skill set that the competitor may not have. So for 50 cents an hour, they'll think long and hard before going back to manually packing again when they're running an auto packing machine.
No, I think is a good point, Ron. And I think this is the essence of automation is, in my view, automation is not about cutting jobs or reducing work, because all of the data that I've been seeing, all of the work that I've been doing or we have been doing, is we're seeing that it's about moving from low value work to the high value work. And which is that's more important is that what is the value of work, what is the value that of this work is for the people, and automation is providing this this opportunity as we move forward.
Yeah, as an example there, I'll hit on that very quickly, Naman, before we move on. If you look at the distribution and warehousing space, there are large, heavy items that are being moved. And if those things are being moved manually, think about like large bags of dog food, right? Only young, very physically fit people can do that. And it takes a wear and tear on the body. So there is not a career in doing that. However, if you automate that, the stacking of dog food, you can have somebody that does that well into their 70s, because all they're doing is resetting the machine and adjusting things and resetting faults or working on the inputs to that machine to keep it running.
Right. No, it's a good point. Well taken, Ron. Thank you. So I want to come back to this point, because some of these projects can be complex. And in my experience, I've seen these projects, industrial automation projects, there's a lot of complexity. Dave, you've been in program management roles for a number of years. You've managed maybe multi-million-dollar or $100 million projects. What is your take on this? Tell us about that.
Well, I always go back, and we'll cover this through this. It always comes down to building a strong foundation to any project, and it always starts in the very beginning with your scope definition and how well you do a job with a scope, defining the scope, the initial scope of your project. It's interesting to me how many times customers come to me, they don't have any specs, they don't have any standards, they really don't even know what it is they want. They just say, I want to automate X, which is very interesting to the point earlier when we said people want to automate things that they've never automated before. So there is no scopes, there is no specification, there is no reference project. We have to do this from scratch. So it's very, very important then to take the time to really define that scope up front. You need to have strong project management from the very beginning, cradle to grave. You need to take a high look at a really, really close look at the complexity. What is the uncertainty? What are the risks? How does everything throughout the project interdependent? You have to have team members in your organizations assigned to the project cradle to grave, from costing all the way through, so you get the proper input. You have to have a knowledge management, obviously, throughout your process. But most importantly, I've noticed many, many times projects fail because there's a lack of understanding from leadership at companies, and then you get a lack of commitment. If you don't well define your project and it's fluctuating, it's very easy for leadership to not be behind the project because they don't understand where it's going. One person tells them X, one person tells them Y. So if you're laser focused from the beginning, if you have a team agreed upon process, you have a team agreed upon scope definition, everyone understands all the way to the top that we're going to make this change because it's going to value the organization, then you have a much higher, greater ability to be successful. So in the next slide, we talk about.
Oh, can I add something to this, Dave?
Yeah.
Just briefly, go back one slide, Naman. The same thing happens for business process automation.
Absolutely.
Keep that in mind as we go forward and we get into the next few slides. What you're saying is absolutely correct. If you want any successful project, whether it's industrial or whether it's business, you have to have a very good scope definition so that you stick to the project plan and you build everything up correctly. Again, you got to have, I like your last comment as well, senior leadership. If you do not have 100% buy-in from your senior leadership, it's going to waver, just like the amount of commitment they put forward. If they're putting in 80%, you're going to get 80%. So you need 100% commitment from that senior leadership piece.
Absolutely. When we talk about what we're doing, especially when you talk about that end of the business process end, you're talking about changing the way we do business. And there will be a lot of people that resist that. That's normal. That's human nature. People say, I've always done that. Why do I need to change? So they'll be in the initial meetings and they'll say, yes, I agree to that. But in the back of their mind, they're saying, I don't want this to be successful. So they let it go forward, and then they go, when they get their time, and they talk to the senior leader on the side, and they say, I don't think we should do this. No project can be successful when that's going on in the background. We need to have everybody well defined at the very beginning, everybody aligned, and we need to have a leadership team that says, you know what, no matter who comes to me and says X, Y, and Z differently, I'm going to still push for this change. So that, I'm just using that as an example of why projects don't do well. On the other side of the coin, next slide, we talk about if you really have a strong foundation, you set up you have your basic planning, design, manufacturing, installation, launch, but that foundation is so critical to set up in the beginning of a project. Customer comes to you, they do a competitive bid on a certain project. It's a baseline project. Then you have to get into pre-process engineering. Very, very critical. And many people don't spend enough time in the pre-process engineering step. That's when you're refining the process, when you're redesigning things, when you're saying this is the technology we can apply. We're going to add some more costs. Maybe we have to look at timing. So in pre-process engineering, you're looking at all the technologies that are out there. You're looking at your timeline. You're looking at all your base. You maybe have to recost a project. But if you do that properly and the customers align and everyone in the organization's aligned, and then you kick the project off, you have a far greater chance of success rather than trying to do those things as the project develops. If you do that when you're in design, it's already too late to make a major change. And then that's when you all of a sudden realize, oh my God, I missed $500,000 worth of content, and now we're in trouble. That's because you didn't do a great job at pre-process engineering and planning. So that's why I really, really drive the importance of setting a solid foundation.
And that's where communication comes in too, because lessons learned is a big part of it.
Exactly. That's in there too. Lessons learned is part of the process.
You could make the same mistake over and over, and nobody ever tells them that he's making the same mistake, which costs how many millions over the course of years, right?
Exactly.
Right. No, this is, I think I agree with you. This is the foundation, because this is where we're thinking about how to design for manufacturing, how to design for maintenance, how to design for service, how to design for all the X's that we have to design this automation for. And this is right here in this planning phase. If we have a clear idea for design for X, then when we move into the design, it's so much easier to do that. With this, I think the next thing I'd like to bring up here is some of these process steps, okay, and the process mapping, how the process mapping becomes very important. So maybe Dennis, you want to shed some light on this topic here, please?
Yes, I would. Just keep me on a time schedule here, okay? Because I do like talking about this. I have a passion for this.
Right.
Besides being a manufacturer, like I said, I'm also a solution software development person. And what I like to do is I like to break down companies' business practices and go use my manufacturing knowledge is when I put a solution together. So what you're going to see here is a couple things. The first one is the as is and to be scenarios. The one on the left is typical how companies are doing business today. The customer has all their data, they have their EBOM, they have all the documents that go with it, and they are going to hand this off for a quote. But once they give it to a supplier, it goes through their value chain to do the work. So as you notice, when it goes through processing, estimating, and all the different departments that it goes through the value chain, they're using the same information, yet they're creating multiple files of that same data in multiple networks with multiple folders. So the next thing you know, everything's disconnected. You don't know what the master is. So you could be building to an incorrect scope. You could be building to an incorrect process, and that is being costed, and there's no handshake. It's not seamless going through the value chain. The one on the right is if there's technologies out there. You can actually take all of the CAD technologies, all the Microsoft technologies, and you can put them into one so that everybody has, and I'm going to say it again, the single source of truth or the single logical location where all the data resides. It's nice to have one set of data as you pull this down so that we're all working to the same data. Okay, and that's what the to-be scenario is. Processes nowadays, if you go ahead and if you put the time into the business process and you know your business process and you develop a plan, everything becomes seamless. Everything is a lean manufacturing. It's cost effective. It goes all the way through your value chain and your supply chain. If you go down to the one on the bottom, that's a typical digital thread build for me. Okay, this is what I've put together in the past for several companies. You start with your customer, you integrate it through the the proper departments, and you integrate softwares. Below, in the middle where you see the blue, that's a PLM system. Above it is your ERP system. At the very bottom is your quality system. Everybody has a quality system that you have to follow. As you go through the process and you're building this up, you integrate the software to the particular part of the value chain and their activities that they're doing. Okay, all of this can be seamless. All of this can be out of the box. All of this can be with minimal configuration and no customization. The whole thing in doing this is putting it all together so that you have one single source of truth going from the very beginning at a napkin sketch all the way through to the first production out the door in the OEM's facility. The biggest thing to do this is you reverse engineer everything because you have to know what your final deliverables are. And when you reverse engineer it, you go forward and then you put the time in at the very beginning, like Dave and Ron mentioned earlier. Put the time in at the beginning to know what your business process is. You should be driving your business process. Do not let the solution providers drive that. It's like if you have a tool design, you have to design it. Would you bring a solution architect to design your tool? No. Would you bring a tool designer to design your software solution? No. So what you have to do is you have to get and build this process up so everybody's on the same page so that when you put the specs together, you put the requirements together, you fill the gap analysis and all the other templates that you have to populate before this goes forward. You know what your business practice is and you drive your business practice to a project plan. See,
You did good, Dennis.
Get a little excited. This one is the digital thread. I'll be quick on this. I'm sorry about that. Basically, a PLM system and an ERP system, you can push and pull from a connector such as Siemens T4S. And also data migration is huge. Data migration, taking the historical data that we're working with now and pushing it into one of these systems is huge. There's companies out there that can seamlessly do this so that you have a seamless one-step process that goes through and everybody is sharing the same information, whether it's changes, whether it's scheduling, whether it's resources or cost, long lead items. Everybody is sharing the same information to build one project. and it's really cost effective when you do this.
Right. No. I think this is a great point that you're bringing about the value of process mapping and the use of digital thread and digital twins, which are available as technology, and that helps you to understand what is your automation is going to look like and how the whole process is gonna work. With this, I like to maybe talk about this future of work, and because I think it's a key point here, what we are talking here, and what is the success, what success that we can create for this future of work. So I'm going to maybe start again, maybe go back to this focus on the value of work, because here we're not trying to cut jobs here, but we're trying to improve the value of work. So the future of work, the most important thing is what is the value of work, and we're focusing on high value of work. But I like to ask Ron about his views on the sustainable jobs. That what does he mean by sustainable jobs, and how is that fitting in the future of work?
Well, as I mentioned before with that example with the dog food, I can have a sustainable job where a person can manage the automation that is doing the laborious task, and they can do that well into their 70s, where they can't actually do the task itself, which might be lifting 50-pound bags of dog food and palletizing them. So if you think about, and I always challenge my engineering teams with this, don't automate the easy things to automate. Automate the things that are difficult for a human to do, so that the job becomes easier for a human. You get better adoption that way. You'll get people rallying around trying to be supportive. And as Dave points out, if you don't have upper level management support, one of the easiest way to get ground up support is getting things where a very laborious task is being eliminated, because then all of the workers will rally around the fact that they don't want to have to do that anymore, and this is a good thing, right? So they'll support the implementation of it. The other thing that we talked about was starting with the end in mind, and it's all about planning, right? So I always challenge my teams, do not schedule or do not work on a project thinking that you're designing an automated solution for the day that it's installed. You're not doing that. You're trying to design it for 10, maybe 15 years past the time it's installed, because it's still going to be there. So we might think of that example that I gave earlier where loading and unloading a trailer, it's a little bit difficult today to keep up with speed. So I know one day I will automate that. What will that look like? Not exactly sure, but it's probably going to have a robot associated with it. It's probably going to be some type of collaborative robot to begin with, and that's going to be a fully automated robot. So I can make room for the robot just by justifying the trailer unloading conveyor right or left in the trailer, and making sure that I future-proof myself, leaving some space for that automated solution.
No, I agree.
Dennis, I agree with that. The one thing that is most important in business and manufacturing is that you got to remember, it's not a sprint. Okay, you don't need that one button push. It's a marathon going over the course of time to build that solution up to the best of its ability, right? So I agree with what you're saying, Ron, 100%.
Right. Hey, Dave, I want to talk about your perspective, because I think you have maybe a bigger perspective of these projects. I want to talk about the value of ecosystem, building partnership and relationships in a project or in an environment where we are in right now.
Well, I think that's key. It's going to be key going forward. I think if anything's been learned out of the pandemic is that people are realizing that we're going to need to rely on as we bring things back to our shore. We're going to see partnerships between companies. I think a great example would be Fanuc. Fanuc does a very good job at working with all the OEMs that supply automation and interacting with them and making sure that their product, the robot, it works seamlessly with the rest of the automation. So partnerships are key. I think you're going to see going forward a lot of the OEM automation suppliers you're going to see partnerships going on between some of the majors working towards common goals to try to solve some of these issues. Instead of saying this is my IP and everybody worrying about that, they're going to focus more on how can we get better for the future. So I think that going forward, you're going to see a lot more collaboration between all of the suppliers towards a common goal, based on the things I'm experiencing right now, talking to different companies.
I think the last time I like to close for this future of work is inspiration. People matter, and the days where we need to, where we used to instruct people, those days are gone. With people are working remote, people are working in all different ways. We need inspiration, we need empowerment, and that's the key switch that as we're moving forward, especially in this age of disruption, post-COVID also, the inspiration becomes very important, because when people are inspired, they want to do 200%, and that's when you excel. That's when you win in this environment. So just moving forward, just real quick, I want to maybe touch upon some of the things that we are doing from the digital factory services standpoint. Dennis, you want to maybe talk about some of the things that we are offering these days?
Yeah, thanks. Just so you know that, groups like ours, there's specialty groups and we work together well, and that's what you really want to go for nowadays. But our team can do any kind of process mapping, all the engineering that you typically do, whether it's process estimating, tool designs, all your robot and human simulations along with discrete events. But we also take that knowledge or that experience that we have with that engineering, and we can create a software solution for you, right? We can put a PLM solution together, an ERP solution together, and write the codes for it. It's nice to know that you have an engineer doing the design for an engineer with the software, because we know what that user acceptance testing is all about. When you get into automation, we always try to find new automations for robots, automated guided systems, joining materials, conveyance. We're always looking to push the new technologies on our end. So if there's something out there, like with Ron's stuff, we're trying to push it and learn more about it and then put it into our processes.
Right. And what about project management, Dave?
So to add to that, I think what this group pulls together is a full understanding of project cradle to grave, as I covered earlier, and understanding the importance of project management. And I think more importantly, we're not in silos when we say we're selling engineering or we're selling a software solution, we're selling a PLM solution or whatever. We're selling a project where we understand that everyone involved in this project has to be behind the project to make the project successful. It's not about silos where, we're just going to finish this step and walk away. We understand that it's cradle to grave. We want to drive this so that in the end, the customer ends up with a total solution that actually works.
Right, right. The last but not least, through the transformability platform, our focus is on business excellence, how we can improve this manufacturing excellence, operational excellence. This is where we start. And then quickly add technology to it and make it a digital transformation and accelerate this excellence, and with a strong focus on human capital development. So this is what we're doing, and with this, I'd like to thank everyone for your patience and your attendance. And if you have any questions, now's the time to maybe ask your questions right now. And if you'd like some more information, you can write to us at info@transformability.io. But I'll open the questions that we have. That if anybody have a question, maybe please feel free. Okay, so there is a question by one of the participants here. Is with the waste and value, how do you address human capital assessment, which has not been addressed systematically, the biggest asset that need to be optimized? So, Ron, do you want to talk about that? How can we optimize this human capital?
Yeah, sure. So I think that was the whole crux of what we were talking about there. And if it got missed, I apologize. But the idea is that today, I don't think that the human capital is being actually appreciated for what it does. I mean, you think about the skilled trades that are out there. The new generations coming up are into technology. They're on the internet, they're chatting, they're using all kinds of technology. They're not interested in going out and working in a warehouse. They're not interested in learning a trade. And to get them interested, I think we need to transform what we now know as a trade, right? So by making some simple things like the preventative maintenance of an automated solution more simplistic, we can now train entry-level folks and stop a lot of the jumping of labor, right? So labor is not a disposable item. It shouldn't be a 200% annualized turnover in these industries. You should be valuing your folks and giving career paths. I don't think that we're really thinking about career paths as much as we should as senior leaders. We should be thinking about, when I hire somebody, whether it's an intern or somebody directly, out of high school, what am I going to do with that person to develop them and create a meaningful career path for them? One that they'll be inspired to do, not one that it's just another day I've got to get out of bed and go do the same monotonous task, but something that they can be involved in the development, they can be part of the innovation on, they can be part of the next generation solutions. And then you really have empowerment of your workforce.
Right. So here's another interesting question. The number of questions have been asked. In the context of de-globalization and relocalization, we have a number of people who are unemployed. How can we bring into this manufacturing jobs, or which going to be needed now as we are relocalizing manufacturing or operations back in the country? Dennis, you or maybe Dave, you might want to maybe comment on that.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, of course, obviously there's a lot going on. I've been involved with a few of the colleges recently, as I know you have also, Norman. And a lot of them are focusing on, okay, we have to start going back to our roots, coming up with good programs for training-based trades, for example, which we kind of went away from in the last decade. But I'm seeing that. But yeah, you're right. As these jobs come back on, people are going to have to be trained on the trades. People are going to have to be trained on things. I think you're going to see people more interested in that going forward. As you say, unemployment is up. So, you can say what you want to say about the trades, but it always brought food on the table when I was in the trade years ago. So it is a viable way of making a good living. So
if I could parlay onto the back of that, to I think add just a little bit more color from a different angle. There are a lot of jobs today that are outsourced to places like China. So one example with COVID is masks. Right, we couldn't get masks because a lot of the production is in China, and trying to get it to come out of China, since the Chinese are using the masks, they didn't want to give them back to the US. So it was easy to throw labor at that. It's easy to throw that into low cost labor countries. However, if you automate it, now strategically you can do that locally and actually produce them maybe even cheaper through the automation, because you got less humans involved. You can probably increase the quality of them. You can increase the speed and productivity of the facility, and make it flexible to make additional things coming out of it. I think that's one of the ways that you can draw the labor pool, if you will, back in. So maybe those tasks that they were doing, for instance, restaurants, they're going to be really struggling to try and do a 25% capacity and open up at 50% capacity and do social distancing. Most restaurants are set up on a 65+% utilization. If they don't have that, they're not profitable. So opening at 50% doesn't help them. So automating some of those tasks in there, and then teaching people how to run the automation or maintain the automation or feed the automation, things like that, then become more meaningful tasks that can be longer term.
Right. Yeah, but one thing in my perspective, we want to make these type of jobs as something which is our society, or as a country, we value these type of jobs. So over the last maybe a few decades, as we have moved a lot of these jobs to countries which we sometimes best cost countries, we have lost the appeal for these type of jobs. I think there is a stigma that these manufacturing jobs or operations jobs are, these jobs are maybe they're not, there's not enough money, but there's not too much appeal in these jobs, because we have put an environment where we said, okay, we're just going to ship the jobs that has low value to best cost countries, and now we are not manufacturing things. Okay, so I think starting from education institution, we need to start from there, and we need to start to teach people that how they can participate in these type of jobs, and also with the new technologies like data science, 3D printing. There are a lot of these cool technologies out there where we can maybe, instead of teaching people these vocational things in old traditional ways, maybe the new things. So Dennis, you might want to add something to that.
Yeah, I just want to add something real quick. From my perspective, and what I've been doing over the last 10 to 20 years, networking is key. Okay, networking is key. You don't have to belong to businesses anymore. You could be your own business. Everybody has value. There's value in what everybody does. If you can find something that you're of value of, whether it's writing scripts, whether it's doing tool designs, or anything in project management, you don't have to belong to a huge company. Some people like working by themselves and like working in networks, like we're doing right now. It's a network of 4 people talking about automation, and there's value there, and it's a service that you can sell and provide to other people. So the whole dynamic is changing to where people are going and they're working and they're leveraging the skills that they have, right? And they're doing it by themselves, and they're selling that service.
Right. Last comment, Dave, you want to close this webinar? Go ahead.
I just wanted to make one last comment to add to our last discussion, and I'll use this example from the construction industry, some of the companies I've been working with, and I think Dennis has been also. Currently, and there's a real shortage of tradesmen in the construction industry, especially in the home building. What I'm finding is some places are importing workers from other countries like South America on 3-month visas, for example. But if we automate these processes, we've got companies looking at 3D printing walls, we've got companies looking at robotics to set cinder block walls and whatnot. You can internalize the workforce. You can use a higher skill level workforce to build a cinder block wall now. And you're using automation. You're taking away the laborious task of abuse on your body building a cinder block wall, but you're making it automated. You're making it something younger people will be more interested in. And I think crosses the bridge of all of this when you discuss it. So we're not just talking about industrial automation. This goes into construction. It goes into the whole gamut. Automation and integration. There's opportunity in all of it.
Excellent, excellent. You know, so a lot of questions are still coming, and a lot of comments are still coming. I think they're all good comments. There's a number of people are sharing their perspective. We appreciate that, and we appreciate you joining this call today. Feel free to write to us if you have any more questions, or if you want to follow up on this webinar. Like I said, you can, the handout is available through this webinar, and also the presentation, we'll post it on the website as well as on the YouTube channel. So gentlemen, thank you very much. Ron, always a pleasure having you on the program. Dennis, excellent energy, your passion. And Dave, thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.